It started as an ordinary evening. The sky was a deep shade of blue, stars twinkling faintly, and a soft breeze rustled the trees. Sarah had just settled on her porch with a cup of tea, enjoying the peaceful night, when she noticed something unusual. Max, her loyal German shepherd, was trotting towards her from the woods behind the house. His mouth gripped the handle of a battered, dirt-streaked bag. His ears were alert, his tail stiff. He was focused. This was not one of his usual playful antics. At first, Sarah chuckled, thinking Max had found an old piece of trash. But then she noticed the intensity in his eyes. He whined and nudged the bag towards her, urging her to take it. Something about the way he acted sent a shiver down her spine. Hesitant but curious, she leaned forward and unzipped the bag. The moment she saw what was inside, her breath hitched. Her hands trembled as she dropped the bag onto the wooden floorboards. Panic surged through her veins. Within seconds, she was dialing 911, her fingers shaking on the keypad. She could barely form the words as the dispatcher picked up. "There is something terrible. Please send help." Her voice cracked. Max stood beside her, ears perked, his eyes scanning the darkness as if he knew trouble was coming. Max was not just any dog. He was Sarah's rock, her constant source of comfort. 3 years ago, she had walked into the local animal shelter expecting to adopt a small, easy-to-manage dog. But the moment she locked eyes with Max, she knew. He was different. He was special. His amber eyes held a story, a longing for a second chance. When Sarah brought Max home, he was hesitant at first. He had scars, both visible and invisible, from his past. But over time, he warmed up to her. They developed an unbreakable bond, one built on trust and unconditional love. Max had been through a lot, but he had found his forever home. Over the years, Max became more than a pet. He was her protector. He had an uncanny ability to sense danger, always placing himself between Sarah and anything unfamiliar. He never barked without reason, never acted out of turn. That was why when he brought the mysterious bag home that night, Sarah knew it was something serious. He was trying to tell her something she could not ignore. Max refused to come inside. He kept circling the backyard, his ears perked, his tail stiff. He was fixated on something. Sarah followed his gaze and spotted a filthy, torn bag lying in the dirt near the tree line. At first she dismissed it as trash, until Max nudged it toward her, whining insistently. A shiver ran down her spine. Max had never reacted this way to something before. The urgency in his eyes made her hesitate, but curiosity took over. She reached down, brushing the dirt off the fabric. The bag was heavier than she expected. She slowly unzipped it, her breath hitching, as the zipper revealed its hidden contents. Her fingers brushed against something unexpected, bundles of old, crumpled dollar bills. But that was not what made her heart stop. Beneath the money was a small, blood-stained note. Her hands trembled as she pulled it out and unfolded it. The words, scrawled in uneven handwriting, sent ice through her veins. "Do not tell anyone. Watch your back." Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. Who had left this here? Why was it buried in the woods behind her home? 100 questions raced through her mind, but one thing was clear. This was no ordinary lost bag. It carried a warning, a threat. Max let out a low growl, his eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the trees. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Was someone watching them right now? She felt exposed, vulnerable. Panic clawed at her chest as she glanced around, half expecting a shadowy figure to emerge from the woods. Gripping the note tightly, she took a step back toward her house. She needed to call someone, anyone. Her hand shook as she reached for her phone. Whatever this was, it was not over yet. Sarah's breathing grew uneven as she stared at the note in her trembling hands. The chilling message felt personal, like a whisper in the dark, meant only for her. But why? Who had left it? And what exactly was this money doing here? Determined, she emptied the bag onto the porch floor. The crumpled bills scattered, revealing yet another shock, a small, rusted key. It looked old, like it belonged to something important, something hidden away for years. Sarah's mind raced. A note warning her to stay silent, a key to something unknown. And Max? His behavior was different tonight, more protective, more alert. Was he sensing something she could not? The air around her felt heavier. Suddenly, Max barked sharply, his stance shifting into full protection mode. Sarah followed his gaze to the tree line, and for the first time that night she saw it. A shadow moving between the trees. It was not her imagination. Someone was there. Sarah's stomach dropped. Adrenaline kicked in, and she stumbled backward toward the door. She needed to act fast. With shaking hands, she grabbed her phone and dialed the police again. "Please hurry. Someone is out there. I think they are watching me." Max's growls deepened, his body tense as he took a step forward, ready to defend his home. The night, once quiet and peaceful, had turned into something sinister. And Sarah knew this was only the beginning. Sarah's pulse raced as she backed into the house, locking the door behind her. She peered through the window, barely daring to breathe. Max stood at the door, muscles tense, ears pointed forward. The shadow in the trees moved closer. A figure emerged, hooded, cautious, as if searching for something, or someone. Sarah's phone trembled in her hands as she relayed the details to the dispatcher. Then the figure stopped and turned toward the house. Sarah's heart pounded as she watched the shadow disappear into the dense forest. For a moment she hesitated. Then she grabbed a flashlight and ran after Max, who was already darting toward the trees. The air was thick with tension, the night alive with the sound of rustling leaves and snapping branches. Max barked furiously, weaving through the trees as if he knew exactly where to go. Sarah struggled to keep up, her breath ragged, adrenaline pushing her forward. Then she saw it. A small wooden shack, half hidden behind overgrown bushes. The door hung slightly ajar, swaying in the wind. Max growled low, his body tense. Sarah swallowed hard, stepping closer. Inside, the dim light from her flashlight revealed something chilling, maps pinned to the walls, marked with red X's. A stack of newspapers lay on a rickety table, all featuring missing persons reports. And on the ground, another bag, identical to the one Max had found. Before Sarah could react, a noise behind her made her spin around. Footsteps, fast and approaching. Max lunged, snarling. Sarah barely had time to register what was happening before a hand grabbed her wrist. As Sarah stepped inside, the smell of damp wood and something metallic filled her nose. She swung her flashlight across the room, revealing stacks of old, rotting furniture, scattered papers, and her breath caught, maps and photographs pinned to the walls. Her eyes widened as she recognized a familiar face in one of the pictures. It was her neighbor, Mr. Thompson, the sweet old man who always waved at her when she walked Max. But why was his face circled in red ink? Then another discovery sent chills down her spine. A locked metal box sat on a dusty table, the same emblem from the bag imprinted on its surface. Hands shaking, Sarah reached for it. But before she could touch it, bang! The door behind her slammed shut. She spun around, heart hammering. A shadow loomed in the doorway. Max stood between her and the figure, his teeth bared, ready to fight. The flashlight flickered again, and Sarah finally saw who it was. A voice, cold and sharp, cut through the silence. "You should not have come here, Sarah." Sarah's stomach dropped. The mystery was far from over.